welcome to another edition of Did You Know Doctor Who? What you may not know about Doctor Who. This time we're going to have a look at the Revival era's first appearance of the Sontarans, the Sontaran Stratagem / the Poison Sky. I hope you enjoy. Helen Rayner wrote this episode. Her Series 3 episodes, Dalek Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks, both filled 4th and 5th episode slots in that series. This two-parter story also occupies the 4th and 5th episodes. Helen Rayner was also originally reluctant to write this story, having read online comments about her previous Dalek two-parter and come away physically shaking at the level of vitriol. Russell T Davies convinced her not to take the comments too seriously and to write this story. Concept art originally had the Sontarans looking more like their original counterparts. When Donna asked the Doctor if it was his influence that turned Martha into a soldier, a few notes of Donna's theme music can be heard before it segues into the music which plays when the unit soldier appear. Mobile phone company O2 released an Atmos sat-nav phone, possibly based on the devices used in this episode. This story is broadcast during the 35th anniversary year of the Sontarans. In The Time Warrior, the Sontarans were described as nasty, brutish and short, a reference to Thomas Hobbes. This is the first time they are actually shown to be shorter than actual normal humans. UNIT has now been rebranded as Unified Intelligence Task Force, having previously been known as the United Nations Intelligence Task Force. This followed a request by the United Nations shortly after the series returned to TV in 2005. Nonetheless, Martha still refers to UNIT receiving funding from the United Nations. When communicating with each other, UNIT uses call signs first used in the classic series. These are mostly based on Greyhound racing. Personnel are usually designated as Greyhound, call sign, and a base operation is known as a trap. Donna makes reference to the terrorist prisoner camp at Guantanamo Bay. This is one of the first references in Revived Doctor Who to the aftermath of the 9/11 attack. Similarly, Martha refers to UNIT's funding as being in the name of Homeworld Security, a deliberate reference to the Department of Homeland Security established in the US after 9/11. The cloning vat in this story is the fountain from the fires of Pompeii redressed. The table that is used to hold Martha is used in Torchwood episode Cyberwoman. Also, the metal headwear that Martha has on at the same time looks like it's a mind probe from the episode Sleeper. This episode continues the pattern of having monsters from the classic series return in the new one. Davies commented that the Sontarans were always on his list of villains to resurrect. The time and location of the story was chosen because of the previous Sontaran story, except for the invasion of time, was set on Earth. Rayner initially envisioned the poisonous gas would be emitted by factories, but changed it in later drafts to cars for several reasons. The episode would provide social commentary that the idea of an evil sat-nav system was much more engageable and irresistible. Because the series was produced out of order, the Atmos subplot was seeded into the previous episode, Partners in Crime. Originally, Jeff Noble was in this episode. Following Howard Atfield's death, his role was given to Wilf. The original script mentioned that Jeff was unwell. Rose briefly appears on the TARDIS screen in this episode. She receives screen credit and is fourth billed for a performance that lasts less than 1 second, which was actually a shot for another episode. According to Russell T Davies in an interview in Doctor Who magazine 396, this cameo was not in the original edit of the episode, but was added just before broadcast when Davies learned how successful her unbilled cameo in Partners in Crime was. Although it was reported that the clip came from an untransmitted scene from another episode, in fact, according to the DVD commentary for Midnight, the scene was shot especially for Midnight during the production of Turn Left, and Davies dropped the scene into the Poison Sky too. Davies said that, like Partners in Crime, advanced review copies of this episode did not include the cameo. This is the first episode to feature Billie Piper, Freema Agyeman, and Catherine Tate, all together as Rose, Martha, and Donna, respectively. It is not, however, the first story in which all three actresses appear, as they all appeared in Army of Ghosts / Doomsday. The Doctor says to the clone Martha, Avanti, which means let's go, in Italian. This is probably to confirm his suspicion of her clone nature. The real Martha would know that the Doctor usually say Allons-y, the French equivalent. The Brigadier is said to be stranded in Peru. He has been knighted, as Colonel Mace refers to him as Sir Alistair. This is the first reference to this character in Doctor Who since 1989's story Battlefield, although several references occurred in the first season of the Sarah Jane Adventures, with the Brigadier actually appearing. The Brigadier was knighted in the book The Dying Days, and was called Sir Alistair in the Big Finish Audio Productions audio dramas. The Doctor wishes he was there. Donna was originally meant to use a shoe to knock out the Sontarans, but because Catherine Tate only wears trainers and they didn't want it to be a trainer, or they thought that a trainer would be too soft and just bounce off the back of the neck, she got to use a mallet instead. While wearing a gas mask, the Doctor says, "Are you my mummy?" a reference to the empty child. Initially, cloning was to be a much more persistent element in the story, with the Atmos factory workers all being clones. Russell T Davies felt that the clone idea would be more effective in small doses, however, which led to the introduction of the cloned Martha. And that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed. The Sontaran Stratagem / The Poison Sky, in my opinion, does a very good job at bringing back the Sontarans for modern audiences. I really like the blue look of the Sontarans. It's a very unique and colourful look to them, but it's also, commands presence and makes them look unique compared to other versions of the Sontarans that we see. I really love the design and the makeup done for the Sontarans here. The design and the makeup looks absolutely fantastic. This is probably the best look for the Sontarans, in my opinion. Do I prefer the black armor? I don't mind the black armor that much. I mean, I will say this, having watched War of the Sontarans with the 13th Doctor, I do think that, the Sontarans do well with a more classical look. But I still think that this, in terms of makeup design, is far superior. It looks so brilliant, it looks so realistic. I mean, this is fantastic makeup work. Aesthetically speaking, it's a very colourful episode. The lights and everything are all purple and pink and green and what have you. It's definitely a Russell T Davies era story, with all the colours. But let's not talk about the aesthetics, let's talk about the story. The story itself, I think, is a decent sort of sequel follow-up with Martha. We see Martha, how she's doing at this moment in time, and I think this does a great job at showing us how she's managed to evolve from the Doctor, because Martha, I will say, is probably the weakest of the David Tennant companions, in my opinion, discounting the ones that appear in the specials. The problem with Martha was she was made to just try and fall in love with the Doctor, but obviously the Doctor doesn't really love her back and all that. And whilst they did try to make her more strong and independent, especially when she faces off against the Master and the 1 year under the Master's rule, and even here they're still trying to push that. I still find her kind of weak as a companion, which is a real shame, because I don't think Martha is a bad companion or bad character. Obviously Donna is fantastic. I love some of the lines she delivers here. The Sontarans, they're brutal, they're funny, they're great. I love the Sontarans. They're fantastic villains, in my opinion. I think they're wonderful additions that were brought in during the Time War era. Overall, this is a very good story, and I totally recommend it. And I think this is another example of why Series 4 is such a strong series. Almost every single episode of this series is truly top tier, and this is definitely up there as well. And it's not as good as some of the other ones, mind, especially the final 2 episodes and final 3 episodes arguably, but it's still up there. It's still fantastic. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, and I'll see you next time.